Councillor Bala.
I have a motion that I'd like to be up on the screen. Madam Speaker, I was one of the councillors that have asked for a plan, and I was one of the councillors that was asked...
Okay, just one sec. First of all, you need to have your motion prepared on the screen.
Prepared.
Is it? Okay, well, let's put it on the screen and then you can read it out, okay? And then you could speak.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I was one of the councillors that has asked for financial tools. I was one of the councillors that was asked maybe more than a month ago if I would support different financial tools, and I said yes. And I would like to thank and congratulate the administration for putting this on the table today and this discussion. It is the first time that I'm seeing the proposal in front of us. I'm still not 100% sure if it's coming from Councillor Del Grande, if this is the plan that the Mayor has thought of all along. But the reality is that we have it in front of us, and I think that's something very good. We have to talk about financial tools. We have to have a responsible discussion about transit in the city, but that's not what we're having today. We're not being responsible. We're being asked to jump first, ask questions later. And that's not how I represent my constituents. Approving something, not knowing who's going to pay, how much is it going to be paid, how we're going to be collecting, how much is going to be collected, we don't know. What are the pros? What are the cons? We don't know. Am I supportive of financial tools? If somebody can ask me, absolutely. I can vote on that right now, that we need new financial tools. Is this the best one? I'm not sure. I don't even know how it's going to be implemented. So what I'm asking here is that we defer it to the city manager to come back with his report on a strategy for transit. I believe that Councillor Del Grande put some items that are key on the table. We have lines that are imperative that we start financing. We have to find new financial tools. I think we need to commend the administration, the Mayor, for accepting to have this discussion. I think the city is ready to have this discussion. I think you will have the support to put some of these tools in place, but we need to do it in a responsible way. We need to involve stakeholders. We need to speak to the people of Toronto. We need to really want to talk about it and just not pretend we want to talk about it and we want to implement these tools by saying, you said show me the money, here it is because we know you're not going to vote for it. We're not going to vote for it because we have the courage to say we want to have a responsible discussion on it. We want to involve our constituents, and we want to make sure that this tool is not going to be another vehicle registration tax that is not going to be implemented well, and for that everybody now is scared to talk about it because it wasn't done the right way and it wasn't popular. So I would ask for your support. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us. I think we have 2 years. I think this administration has an opportunity to leave a legacy and a mark on the transit file. I think they will certainly have the support to have that mark and put that in the next 2 years in front of us and to the voters and to the people of Toronto. But I think we have to do it in a responsible and responsive way.
We have a question for you. Deputy Mayor Holliday.
Yes, I appreciate your concern over the financing, but in view of the fact that a great number of councillors' decision on which way to go is predicated on where the money comes from and how we're going to pay for the system. A lot of councillors seem to indicate that because we only have money enough to do the late rapid transit at this time, that's what we should go ahead and do. Do you think maybe we should defer this whole decision until we take a look at this money and see exactly where it's going to come from?
I think you will see that through the way that people vote. I think there's people will feel comfortable or not comfortable in voting for the LRT or not. I think there is a clear desire to have this discussion in this council chamber about revenue tools. You know what, and if maybe we've had all this discussion maybe since a month ago when I was asked about the revenue tools, and then people just went back and forth on supporting, not supporting. I've been consistent. I support new revenue tools to finance transit in the city. Let's have the discussion. Do not bring me a motion so I can vote for a subway that at the end of the day has a lot of question marks an hour before or 2 hours before the vote.
But
That's
on
all I'm
such an
saying. Let's have a
important matter,
responsible discussion.
Shouldn't we have all the information, like the information you want about the funding, before us, before we make this decision that's going to carry the city into the future?
Each councillor will know if they have enough information or not to make that decision.
Yeah,
Councillor. I cannot respond for my colleagues.
Your motion is
Clarification of the
half a
motion.
deferral. Why don't you defer the whole thing?
I'm deferring the motion.
You don't
I am
want to defer
deferring-
the whole thing.
I am deferring the whole thing. I'm deferring the motion. If councillors have the information that they feel is necessary for them to cast a vote on the LRT and only half of
Are
the
you
vote...
happy with them making the decision with half the information?
I feel like I have the information today to make both decisions today, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Perruzza.
And listen to all the information, and some of it is just absolute hogwash. You know, none of us have a crystal ball. Councillor Davis says she doesn't have a crystal ball. She told me so earlier. She tries to project in the future, but can she see it clearly? No. What we really do have, though, is we have history as a guide. So I went downstairs earlier today to take a look at some of the photographs that represented Toronto 100 years ago. There were horses and buggies in the middle of the street. 100 years ago, there were horse-drawn carriages running around Toronto. I tried to find a map of where, how far the city extended. Couldn't do that, but apparently it didn't extend far beyond Bloor. So earlier today we're hearing, evidence from experts talking about this is 100 years. We're doing 100 years. It's about 12 million, 15 million, 30 million new people. It's like, oh, so-and-so said this, so therefore I'm going to believe that. Oh, okay. Sure. But you look at 100 years ago, we had horse-drawn carriages. You look at us today, we landed little gizmos on Mars. We have. Imagine where we'll be 100 years from now. Can you imagine it? I can't. Maybe you'll all have your own personal little flying machines. I don't know. But here's what I know we have to do. This isn't about, a subway, because you look at history, you look at Sheppard. We heard today from the TTC that 15 years ago, when that decision, when the 5 or 6 people in this room who voted on that billion-dollar boondoggle that went from nowhere to nowhere, and we've been subsidizing to the tune of $10 million a year ever since, never met its targets, never did what it was intended to do. Never filled up. Didn't bring the jobs, didn't bring the people, didn't do any of that, but we keep more money into it. Right? So now we have all of the evidence. All of the evidence is in, all of the reports, everything. Oh my God, so much paper has been produced on it, which suggests and says that if you continue to spend more money on it, you're just going to continue to subsidize it. Almost forever. That's what you're going to do. So do that. You made a dumb decision, a political decision 15 years ago, politically driven, not supported by the experts. You made a mistake then, you blew $1 billion, so blow some more on it. Yeah, make another political decision and just keep blowing, keep blowing money away at this thing. You know what? It's about time that we actually have a serious debate in this place about this very issue. What we need to do, and we heard from Councillor Del Grande earlier, and by the way, Speaker, I neglected to move my motion. The clerks have it.
Councillor Perruzza, you're 4 minutes into your speech.
No, I know.
You know what the rules
yeah,
are.
I neglected to do that. They have it. They had signed all that stuff. It was duly prepared. I just missed that opportunity. And it's there, and it's not. It's the motion I spoke to earlier. But Speaker, here's what we have.
Hold on. What
So
motion?
we have
You did-
history.
Councillor Perruzza,
Can you stop my clock then?
I did.
Okay.
I did. See, it's not moving.
Okay.
Councillor Perruzza, what motion are you referring to?
The clerk's
Your
out-
motion is redundant, so there's no motion.
It's redundant.
Yeah. Okay, your time is moving now.
So, Speaker, what we have is we have history. So we got a plan. We got to, we heard that the economy suffers to the tune of about $6 billion a year in lost productivity. So we have an opportunity over the next 3, 4, 5 years to do some transit planning in the City of Toronto. Does that mean that the transit debate or the debate on Subway ends here today? Absolutely not. It just moves us into the next phase of city building that'll meet the needs of the city over the next 20, 25, maybe 30 years. And then we will come back here, not 30 years from now, I suspect, in a very short order, and we will continue to talk about what the next phase of that development will be. Maybe it'll be a subway to Scarborough. Maybe it'll be the extension of the Yonge Street subway. Maybe it'll be a downtown relief line. I don't know what shape that debate will take. But we're going to have it, because we need to have it. So what are we doing today, Speaker? Because it's really, really important for us to speak to that as well.
Do you need an extension, Councillor Perruzza?
You know what? I didn't think I would, but I'm going to have to because of all the interruptions.
There were no interruptions. You interrupted yourself.
You cut me off.
Recorded vote.
Yeah.
It was your own interruption.
Councillor Del Grande, please. Councillor Berardinetti. Councillor Doucette. Councillor McMahon, please. Thank you.
Elevator incident. Elevator incident.
Councillor Matlow, thank you very much. Careful. The motion to extend the speaking time carries 26 to 2.
Okay, thank you.
So, Speaker, what are we doing today? We are building a subway. 8.6 kilometers runs from Downsview Station all the way to Vaughan, the 905. 6 stations worth $2.5 billion. We're doing that as we speak. We are building a subway. We are going to build another subway. They like to call it a subway. I'm going to call it a subway too. Under Eglinton Avenue, from Trethewey to Laird Drive. We're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build some light rail too, because we have the money to be able to do it. And we get shovels in the ground, and hopefully we get that some of that $6 billion in lost productivity, where people are sitting in their cars not being able to go to work. Maybe we bring that down a little bit, and the city becomes a little more productive. Because that's what we should do. That's the responsible decision. It's not about voting on a double tax or a double vehicle registration tax that we have no idea what its impact will be, doesn't generate nearly enough money to build anything other than, a pay-as-you-go over the next 20 or 25 years, at they say $100 million a year, doesn't get you a subway. Certainly doesn't get you a subway under Finch Avenue, as Councillor Mammoliti likes to allude to. It is almost shameful that they do that. We should have an honest, serious debate with the people of Toronto about what it is that we're talking about. And that's what it is that we are talking about. And lastly, Speaker, I am glad that we are finally having an engaged debate on this matter. We should have had it when Transit City was approved. Because in the intervening time, in the absence of that debate, we have just simply pilfered away tens of millions of dollars of the respectful taxpayers.
Your time's up. Councillor DeGiorgio to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's a form of planning that it's called dollar planning. And when you engage in dollar planning, common sense goes out the window. When you plan on the basis of what can we afford and only on the affordability factor, you really don't ever end up with the best solution to any problem. You know, as a member of the Budget Committee, we were very aware of the fact that other levels of government were telling us we're not committing funds to municipalities the way we have in the past. Provincial government, we don't have money. Federal government, we don't have money. You, the municipality, will have to introduce new revenue sources to be able to handle your needs. If you want to be masters of your own destiny, then introduce new revenue sources. And during the last administration, we did exactly that. Some of us supported the land transfer tax and even the vehicle tax, notwithstanding that it seemed to have a horrible impact on seniors. But we did introduce those revenue measures because we wanted to have some control over what we were capable of doing. And you know, when the provincial government launched the Let's Move project and introduced all sorts of grandiose plans, and the TTC went along with it, we've got all these lines that are going to be built. They call them LRT lines. There was no funding plan. Nobody knew what the ultimate cost would be. All we know is there is one priority item, the Eglinton LRT. The province is going to own it, and they're committing $8.4 billion. And by the time that's all said and done, the $8.4 billion will be used up by the Eglinton LRT, especially now since there's talk that it'll be extended, at least the tunneling will be extended to beyond the Don Valley Parkway. Now, on a personal note, one of the recommendations that came forward last time that basically said we're going to tunnel only from Black Creek to Laird, the reality is that the original plan had tunneling occurring from Jane Street to Laird. The fact that we approved at our last council meeting tunneling to begin at Black Creek essentially said that from Jane to Black Creek would also be above grade. That was never made plain, but that's an immediate impact on my area. You know, expansion of public transit is important, and we will have to look at revenue tools in the future, but I personally will not be supporting new revenue tools beyond what I've already supported if we're going to be talking about LRTs. I will support new revenue tools if we're talking about incremental expansion of our subway network. I think that needs to be done first before you start connecting the artilleries of the subway network with presumably LRTs. Other levels of government have got to come to the table. We have to say, look, public investment is needed to set the table for the development that we think will occur along Sheppard Avenue. Councillor Kelly basically said Scarborough is looking to higher densities in the future. Unless we make certain that there's going to be a subway there, and believe me, private enterprise doesn't like the uncertainty. The moment you basically say we're committed to a Sheppard Avenue subway, you will begin to see activity in Scarborough that you never dreamed of. Now, our official plan may not want to do that, but through our official plan review, we're going to have to make sure that we induce development, that we incentivize development along that Sheppard corridor, which heretofore has not been there simply because we have a stump from Yonge Street to Don Mills. Nobody is going to, unless you specify that, yes, we're going to extend that subway, you're not going to get the development, period. So, you know, upper levels of government, I learned this a long time ago, and I'm not going to be asking for an extension, Madam Chair, because I think most people have made up their minds. But one thing I learned a long time ago, probably in 1982, and David Cromie will remember the federal election back in '84, I learned in 1982 that you can never take at face value what upper levels of government tell you they're trying to accomplish. You can never take it at face value. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Milchin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, is this a transit debate? Is it a political debate? What kind of a debate is this? A long debate, yes. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. But certainly what it is the discussion about the opportunities that present themselves to us to expand and build transit in the city. Unfortunately, today's debate boils down to the squandered opportunity that's here today. I think there's little doubt that the result of today's vote will be a positive vote for Sheppard LRT. I'm happy to work with councillors and with commissioners on whatever council's decisions are. But for me, it's pretty clear. A Sheppard Subway will carry far more new riders than a Sheppard LRT. And what this city needs is to move as many people onto public transit as possible, take as many cars off the road as possible. So to me, those who say this issue is a no-brainer, I agree. Because to me, the no-brainer is about moving more people onto transit. Now, yes, we don't have the money to build a Sheppard Subway from the Metrolinx funds. And Councillor Delgrand, I applaud Councillor Delgrand for bringing this motion forward today about revenue tools. As many of you know, and as certainly as the media have surmised, many of us have been pushing to have the discussion about revenue tools brought forward because the City of Toronto, as the biggest, the richest city in this country, has more financial capacity, and our society has more financial capacity to build the kind of transit that this city needs. It's not beyond us. So the revenue tools that we have the authority to implement can pay for a Sheppard Subway extension if we choose it. Now, if we choose not a Sheppard Subway extension, then I think it's a debate we continue to need to have because there is no end of the long list of other transit projects that we have. And I implore members of council to make this council, during this term of council, the council that decides that Toronto is going to start paying for the expansion of our transit system. That we're not simply going to wait a generation at a time to have a federal, provincial government wake up and say, oh, I guess we should have been building something. Let's try and play catch-up. It needs to be ongoing. It needs to be, as Councillor Delgrand says, perpetual, because the need will only continue to expand. What's unfortunate is the lack of leadership that's led up to today's debate has made it difficult to achieve that today. And we'll move on, and depending on how the next few years unfold in terms of the way Metrolinx decides to phase its projects, we may yet have several more elections where a Sheppard Subway is a matter of political debate, and provincial elections, and federal elections. So it might not be the final decision point today. We might have to revisit this. But councillors, this city needs to move as many people onto transit as possible. So we have to work to put in place those means that move as many people as possible. In this case, it is the extension of a Sheppard Subway. And I will be asking for an extension. I just wanted to make one final point. My friend Councillor Matlow and I have had ongoing Twitter debates about evidence-based transit planning. And the evidence is two of the largest potential office parks in the City of Toronto are the Consumers Road and Scarborough Town Centre areas. Outside of the downtown, there are no two other spots that could potentially attract as much office development. That's a fact. The other fact is that the planning regimes that consecutive councils over the decades have used never followed up paper planning with any tools to try and make it happen. So I'm asking for an extension, Madam Speaker.
Yes, okay. Recorded vote.
So
Councillors Prutz and Kelly, please.
Councillor Milchin and Councillor Vaughan, please.
Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Bailao, please.
And Councillor Ainsley, please.
The motion to extend the speaking time carries 31 to 1.
Thank you.
So the planning tools that we have now under the City of Toronto Act, where we have tax equivalent grants that we can offer to office development, that we've made real progress on shrinking the gap between our commercial tax rates and the 905, and within about a decade, we'll meet them, we'll match them. Guess in a decade, we'd have transit running on Sheppard. So yes, for 2031, the LRT might have a slightly better argument for being implemented, but not for 2040, not for 2050, not for 2060, and I could continue counting. And that's what we should be thinking about when we invest billions of dollars. And finally, to those who like to point out Paris. Paris is building trams. Well, Paris is building what they call trams, or LRTs, where there are gaps in their phenomenal system. Where they have subway lines, they continue to expand them. The Sheppard may have been a mistake. We should have built the Eglinton then. But we have a Sheppard line now. We should finish it, because that is the right thing to do in the long term. LRT might be the right thing to do in the shorter term, but planning horizons for public transit, major infrastructure, are about a century, not about a decade.
Councillor Ford.
Well, today I guess we've heard all the arguments back and forth that there was no plan, there is no money, maintenance costs are equal. And we know that's not true now after today. We know that there is a plan. We know there is money. And we know that it's more cost effective to run subways than LRTs. Folks, let me tell you how it works in the private sector here on funding, just in case some of the other folks.
Okay, just a sec. All right.
Oh, I realize.
No, hold on, Councillor Ford. Okay, if I can ask the security to please remove the people that are disturbing the council. No, there's no point of order, Councillor Fletcher. I've said it over and over again that I expect quiet in the council chambers when councillors are speaking. Okay, Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Kelly. Okay, Councillor Ford, want to continue?
I was just mentioning how it works in the private sector, and understand there was a couple chuckles from people that have no experience running a company for 25 years in North America, but I'll tell you anyways how the private sector works. When you have an investment, and when you're going to invest, and by the way, there's probably 4 or 5 companies within blocks of this building that are investing billions of dollars worldwide in infrastructure projects. There's pension funds, blocks from this building, that are putting their money overseas because we don't have an infrastructure project or a P3 project right now that they can fund. What happens in the private sector is if there's no initiative from a city, be it this city council, to move forward on subways, do you think an investor would invest in that? The answer is no. As Councillor DiGiorgio pointed out, and a real great example is what happened on Sheppard, as a few of us call it the little stub of the subway area, that it cost us $1 billion. Now there's $3.8 billion of economic development that has occurred in that short little area. I'm going to run through a couple stats here. LRTs, daily boardings, are 56,000. Subways are 88,000. Ridership for LRTs Their capacity is 3,000. Metrolink says 5. Subways, TTC says 78. Metrolink says 11,000. I got to question always the difference between Metrolink's figures and TTC's. When it comes to economic output, LRT will give you 1.6 billion. Subways will give you 3.8 billion. When it comes to employment, LRTs will employ 9,500 people. Subways will employ 22,800 people. Let's talk about business sales, because the world revolves around money, as we all know. Business sales, the LRT is $3 billion. That's not bad, $3 billion for an LRT. Subways are $7.2 billion, folks. The cost of the vehicles is $5.3 million for LRTs. Subways are $2.8 million. Let's talk about the tunneling machines that we have. We have some tunneling equipment that we own. It's heading up to Jane and 7. And I'm in support of the Jane and 7 system. We own those. So once that's complete, we move that tunneling equipment over to Sheppard. We start digging. We have an existing subway there, folks. On our travel time, LRTs are 4 minutes, subways are 10 minutes savings. Now, you don't think there's much of a difference. Multiply 6 minutes times 2, going back and forth from work, and then multiply that times 280 days, 300 days a year. Transit collisions. Well, no, it's LRT, it's significant collisions. Subways, there's nothing. Emergency response times. LRT, as we know from the fire chief and the police chief, that LRTs on St. Clair is a disaster for emergency vehicles.
Oh, come on.
Is a disaster for emergency vehicles.
I'm not.
Greenhouse gas reductions. You know the answer.
What are those?
Subways, reduce them.
Councillor Fletcher, please stop interrupting. That's
all right. That's all right. No, that's fine. Speed, LRTs are 22 kilometers.
so rude.
Actually, articulated buses are 25 kilometers. And for the folks that don't know what an articulated bus is, it's the long buses that you see in Mississauga, that you see all throughout the region. But guess what, folks? We don't see it in Toronto. Guess why we don't see it in Toronto? It means less jobs, less union jobs. That's why they don't have articulated buses in the largest city. I came back from down south. They had articulated buses. I just came from Chicago. They had articulated buses. And by the way, they had quite a few subway stations there too in Chicago. Thank you. Anyways, folks, we're going to come down to this vote today. And this is going to determine the future of transportation for our children and our grandchildren. And we all know what's right. All these councillors.
Councillor Ford, would you like an extension?
Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
Councillor Bailão, please, when you're seated. Thank you.
Just got an extension.
You'll get everybody else, except Rogers.
Well, at least once you voted for me.
Councillor Davis, please.
We're going on St. Clair. We're going to go shop to shop.
Yep.
If you don't know what you're talking about.
I'm on St. Clair more than you are, Councillor.
I live on St. Clair.
That's right.
Do that in the middle of a vote because
You stop.
Councillor Davis, please.
The motion carries 31-1.
Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Grimesy. No beer for you tonight. Anyways, as I was saying, folks, that this is about the future of our city. This is about the children and our grandchildren. And what we don't want to do to the city, we don't want to St. Clairize the whole city. And that is what's going to happen. And I thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that line there.
Hold my heart.
So, anyways, we got to think long and hard. Folks, all the councillors know. They've been getting pounded by phone calls. The Scarborough councillors know. Councillor Chin Lee was there, and I thank you, Councillor Chin Lee, for showing up and listening to your constituents. And it's unfortunate. Adam, can you shut up for 1 minute? Mr. Chow, Raymond Chow, Cho, sorry. It's disappointing that you didn't show up there to represent your constituents, because Rob and I have been in your ward almost every single night, and what we're hearing 100% is they aren't sure why you wouldn't be supporting Subways, but that's your choice. And same with Mr. De Bearmaker here. It was unfortunate you couldn't make it, Councillor De Bearmaker. It's unfortunate. Yes, I understand, and so was Peter Milchin at a TTC meeting, but he made it over. Anyways, folks, we have a serious decision, and it's going to be up to the council to determine, again, if we're going to St. Clairize this whole city.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not do that, folks. Councillor. Okay. Councillor Nunziata, you're up next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Do you know, I wonder when they built the Bloor Subway and the Young Subway, 63 years ago, I think Councillor Palacio said, is if they had the same debate that we're having today. If they did, we'd probably see streetcars along Yonge Street and Bloor Street. And what we wouldn't see is all the Bloor West Village, the retail that we have on Bloor West Village on Yonge Street. We wouldn't have the subways. We wouldn't have these BIAs that are so rich in what's happening downtown, unlike the suburbs where we have nothing, absolutely nothing. We don't even have transit. I don't know if members of council realize that up in the suburbs, in order for us to get to a subway, we have to wait for a bus for a half hour. Takes us an hour to get to the subway, another hour to get downtown. Now, is that fair? Members of council that live or represent the subway line, that's fine because you can jump into the subway. At the last council meeting, Councillor Wong Tam was debating her platform isn't wide enough. She's lucky she's got a platform. We don't have a platform. We don't have a subway. Members of council represent downtown. What they want is wider platforms. They want to improve their subways. But when it comes to us in the suburbs, we get absolutely nothing. In 1995, when they canceled the Eglinton Subway, $150 million to fill the hole. And former $150 million to fill the hole. Hold on, Councillor Mihevik, don't interrupt, please. And former Jack Layton, Mike Cole, fought against the provincial government. How dare you do this to us? How dare you cancel the subway? We want subways. They fought for it. Nothing, they would not settle for less. They wanted subways, and they fought for that. And Jack Layton and Mike Cole fought, said, no, we deserve subways. In York Southwestern, Councillor Pruitt, be quiet. In York Southwestern at Eglinton and Black Creek, we had development. We had Drena that was in from Paris that was going to redevelop that whole site. We were going to relocate the Civic Center. We were going to get all this development along Eglinton and Keele. And guess what? When the subway got canceled, we got nothing. Nothing. What we have now is a grocery store, and we're going to have a maintenance facility for TTC, which I'm not going to support when that comes forward. We have a maintenance facility. And I don't think members of council realize in the last council meeting in February, you voted to expropriate all the homes in my ward for above ground. Do you realize what you did? I don't think so. And Councillor Stintz mentioned, would you build a subway where there's 3 gas stations? I'm sure there was 100 gas stations along Bloor and Yonge Street before we built the subway. Of course there's going to be development. What a stupid question. If you build a subway, you get development. All the development that's been canceled because we canceled the subway. Look what happened on St. Clair Avenue. A total nightmare. We're over budget by over $100 million. And what we were told by our general manager, it was because it was bad management. Bad management, bad deals. Have you ever driven down St. Clair during rush hour when it's bumper to bumper and then you have streetcars bumper to bumper? God help us if there's an emergency on St. Clair Avenue and an ambulance or fire truck has to get down St. Clair. Absolutely no way. You can't get down the street. Is this what you want for the City of Toronto? No. At the air rail link in my ward. Well, you know, we've asked the provincial government and the Clean Train Coalition asked for it, we want it tunneled. Well, whenever, you know, we want the train tunneled in the air rail link, you know, the Georgetown line, but when it comes to Eglinton, no, we want it above ground. You can't suck and blow at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. Now, Councillor Kelly, you have revised. Councillor Kelly, you're not here. We'll get back to Councillor Kelly and his revised motion a little bit later. Councillor Kelly, you have something to tell us about a revision to your motion.
Still no sale.
Thank you, Speaker. In the first clause of my motion, first line, I would seek permission of my colleagues to put in the following words, that is, add these following words to that portion of my motion to read this way: approve a first phase of subway. It was implied in my motion. I'm just making it explicit.
And that'll be circulated by the clerks.
Still voting no, though.
Thank you, Councillor. I think the clerks will be circulating that. Councillor Crescenty to speak.
You look marvelous.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. That's a tough act to follow. Anyway, this morning we heard from Dr. Miller, and he responded to a couple of questions. One was, what moves faster, subways or LRTs? The answer to that question that he gave was that subways will move people faster. Then he was asked if any consideration was given in his report to the operating of the LRTs versus subways. And he indicated that no consideration was given in his report with respect to that. And you would think that a report as important as that would speak to the long-term costs with respect to the operating cost. I have a letter that was circulated that's signed by 6 of the Scarborough MPPs that all support underground transit option. Now, the question I have to ask is, do these MPPs represent the same people that the Scarborough councillors represent? Or are there 2 sets of constituents out in Scarborough that we're not aware of? These are the very same people represented by the MPPs in this letter. Subways provide the highest incentive for moving people out of their cars. They're faster, they're more reliable, And why would you not leave your car at home if you have that kind of rapid transit that you could count on? Last night, I joined Councillor Mamalidi at a public presentation, and I saw for the second time an animated presentation on LRTs. And the best way I can describe it, and I don't want to be too smart about this, but, you know, it was a very nice presentation. It was cute. It was animated. But the reality of that presentation and of what they were talking about is that LRTs are slow. And if LRTs are slow, what are we doing? How are you going to move people from one end of the city to the other end of the city any faster than we are today by taking away buses that potentially, with enhanced improvement, buses, as we heard that Councillor Ford mentioned earlier, buses can move people faster, upwards of 24 to 25 kilometers an hour, faster than an LRT. So why is it that we're so obsessed with these LRTs? I'm very engaged in my community. I speak to people in my community every day. I stand at bus shelters, and I speak to transit riders, and they tell me that the biggest problem they have is getting to the other end of the city. It takes them upwards of an hour and a half to 2 hours to travel to the furthest end of the city. I speak to people that work in Etobicoke coming from Scarborough, and those people have the same problem. And when they understand that an LRT may look cute, may sound nice, and it's you know, for lack of a better description, when I saw that presentation, it's a nice cartoon, but it's not real. Now we have to get real. How is it that these MPPs representing the same people in Scarborough get it? And the very same councillors that represent the very same people, some of them anyway, seem not to get it. And that's quite sad. I have a report in front of me from the TTC that speaks and verifies some of the comments I'm just making with respect to how an enhanced bus service, which is a report that I asked for about a year ago on the Commission, and it's finally coming forward at the next Commission meeting, and I hope it gets dealt with. And what people are telling me in my community, and what people are saying in Scarborough, why should we be dealt differently? Where is the equality? What's wrong with us? Why could we not have the same kind of...
Councillor Crisanti, would you like an extension? An extension has been requested. There will be a recorded vote.
Councillor Kelly, please.
Councillor Crawford, please. Councillor Mihevc. And Councillor Crisanti, please.
The motion to extend the speaking time carries. The vote is 24-3.
Councillor Crisanti.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just make reference to, there are many emails that have come in, but I'm going to make reference to an email, and this one is from Scarborough, that says that they pay taxes like everybody else in the city, and they've been waiting for years for a subway system to help relieve congestion and provide a safe and reliable and fast means of transportation to get around the city. They say that LRTs are not acceptable and subways are the only option. And I get this reaction from people in my community all the time. we have a problem along Finch Avenue. We can fix Finch Avenue for a fraction of the cost with enhanced bus service that will move people along at 24, 25 kilometers an hour for $45 to $50 million. And the LRT estimates are upwards of $1.1 billion. This is taxpayers' money. Why would we throw away $1.1 billion for putting an LRT in the middle of Finch Avenue to move people slower? They don't get anywhere any quicker, and we have total chaos in the meantime. So what I suggest is we give them proper service now, and we give them a proper transit system. And we deserve, as Sheppard does and people in Scarborough do, we deserve subways no different than the people downtown, along Bloor Street, along Yonge Street. What would have happened to Bloor and Yonge Street if the powers to be back in the late 40s and early 50s said, no, we can't afford it, we're not doing it? There'd be no subway system on Yonge Street. There'd be no subway system on Bloor Street. These people had a vision. Where's our vision? So think about your vote, and let's do the right thing for the people in Toronto. And let's give them a subway system and nothing less. We deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crisanti. Councillor Holiday.
I've said this before, but this debate is very difficult because there's merit on both sides of the argument. There's merit on the side of the argument that says that we have a certain amount of money, that we know we have a need right now for more rapid transit, that we can get the most rapid transit above ground, and that we have the money to get a good start on that, and we can aid a lot of people right now and get rapid transit into their neighborhoods with this money. The other argument, of course, is that over the long period of time, is this really the right thing to do? If you take a look at what Dr. Gordon Chong has shown us in his report, the population of the Greater Toronto Area is expected to double by 2062. It's going to go from 6 million to 12 million. And I suggest to you that if that happens, and chances are, the way things are going, it's likely that we're going to need as much rapid transit as we could possibly have. We're going to need the best system possible to move the most people in the shortest period of time. And anything less is going to detract from Toronto as a world-class city. So this decision has great importance today. I'm very concerned that we are making it in haste. Councillor Below has suggested that we put the financing part of it off and go ahead and make a decision on the subway or above ground without having all the information in place. I think that's not right. But on the other hand, if we don't do something about financing ourselves, we can't expect the private sector to get involved. It's been said that if we put money up, that's an initiative for the private sector to come along and show their support. And I think that will happen. Gordon Chong also said that people say there's no money for subways, which is one of the big stumbling blocks why people they want to go for the other system, because it costs less immediately. But we don't know that there's no money for subways because we've not gone out to a proper proposal call to the public sector to see how involved and how much money they'd put up. So we should really be doing that, but in order to do that, we have to take a direction to show them that we're serious about what it is we want. I mean, I really would suggest that what we would do is we would take a direction saying that we want subways, we want staff to go out to proposal calls, we want to put a time frame on it, and let them come back and see how much money is out there to help us complete the job and do it right. If they come back and there is no money, then I guess we know that that's maybe not going to happen. But it's not right to say there is no money if you haven't tested the marketplace. And I'm told that out in the marketplace, if we went out with a proper proposal, there would be considerable funding for subways. Now, I'm also told that back in the 50s, the general manager of the TTC at the time suggested that the council should support funding, I'm not sure if it's 2 kilometers or 2 miles of subway, every 3 years. And that little bit would just be added to continually until we got where we wanted to go. If that would have happened, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. We'd have probably one of the finest subways in the world. we'd have a city that was, I think, even better than what we have now. We'd have businesses here that we don't have. We'd probably have people living here that we don't have. And we'd have a traffic situation that would be livable. But the council of the day, they didn't have the wisdom to do that. Now, we have a second chance today. We have a second chance. Now, I'm the last one in this whole place, maybe other than the mayor, maybe the mayor's brother, that ever would want any kind of new tax. Because in my mind, there really is no good tax. I don't like taxes, but there's no other way to run the system. But some taxes are better than others. And Councillor DeGrand has come forward with a proposal here that makes sense. And it's to put a tax, a dedicated tax for subways on the parking in the city. And that's better than the motor vehicle tax because it captures everyone who comes to park, whether they live in Toronto or they don't live in Toronto. The other tax only taxes people who live in Toronto. And that lets a lot of people who are benefiting by all this escape. Another thing I think that should have to be considered along with that so that everybody shares equally would be some kind of a surcharge on a TTC ticket or token that would also contribute towards this fund. And we could then be in the position that they were in the 50s when they should have done the plan to build little increments along the way till you finally got where you're going.
10
but
seconds.
The direction I think we're going to take today doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'll take my extension.
An extension has been requested. There will be a recorded vote.
Councillors Kelly and Del Grande, please. Councillor Bailao, this is on extension. Extension of speaking time.
Councillor Robinson, please, and Councillor Crisanti. And Deputy Mayor Holliday, please.
I did.
Motion to extend the speaking time carries. The vote is 26-6.
Councillor Holliday.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to do this, Councillor Crisanti referred to this letter from the 6 Liberal MPPs from Scarborough, which I think is every single one of them. And we do know that 7, maybe even 8, of the councillors from Scarborough also support a subway system. But these people, these MPPs write, as MPPs representing the Scarborough area, we are disappointed with how the public transit debate at Toronto City Hall has unfolded. All 6 MPPs from Scarborough support a memorandum of understanding that the mayor signed with the Ontario government, which enabled the Eglinton Cross line to be built underground. They go on to say that the extension of the Sheppard Subway to Scarborough City and beyond is also something that they support. Now, we know the people in Scarborough want this. I know the people in Etobicoke want it underground. They don't want it above ground. When we go forward 50 years and the people are taking a look at what we've done today, I think they're going to say, gee whiz, they knew that we were doubling the population. They cut our streets in half. They did reduce the capacity of the streets, even though, as Councillor DeBarmaker says, that it didn't reduce, it's only 2 lanes now and it would be 2 lanes then, but maybe we need a 3rd lane, or we need more parking, or we need something else out of this street. But they've limited our ability to do anything with it. They got rapid transit going up the middle of it. Well, they've also given us a system that now needs to be replaced, and it doesn't move as many people as it could. It's not the best system that was available to them. I think they're going to say, what the heck were they thinking? And I think they're going to say that with good reason.
Thank you, Councillor Holliday. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and hopefully I'm not going to need an extension. Mr. Deputy, this is one of the biggest decisions I think I'm going to make since I've been here on council for 8 years. It's an absolutely huge decision. We've had a lot of information provided to us. I had a gentleman from Toronto who's giving me information from Peru, and I got a gentleman from Australia who's in Toronto. Our general manager giving me information here in Toronto. We've heard from Dr. Chong. We haven't heard from Metrolinx. There's a lot of, this is a huge decision and a lot of misinformation that I don't believe. You talk about our official plan, the province's official plan, the City of Toronto's official plan, it's to intensify. And that's what we're going to do. And as Deputy Mayor Holiday said, the people that are going to come to the city in the next 30, 40 years, it's going to be staggering. We can't widen the roads. I'm building condos down in my ward at an alarming rate, 40, 50, 60-story condos. And I go to public meetings and say, Councillor Grimes, what are you doing about the traffic? Well, I'm saying, well, Mr. Mihevik, sir, I can't widen the roads out 8 lanes. We can't do it. It's not going to happen. And we have to think far in advance. You talk about our employment lands. This council's agreed to protect employment lands. And you've probably heard me tell this story. Being an owner of a transportation company, had 40-foot trailers the city was planned for back in the 50s and 60s. Then we went to 45-foot trailers. Then we went to 48-foot trailers. Now we're at 53-foot trailers. Then we had day cabs. They're gone now. We have the sleeper units on them. We heard information today from our panelists saying, well, we've got to work that out. These trucks don't turn on dimes. And we keep taking this away and making them turn and do U-turns. This has got to be planned for. It's not getting any better. I talk about my daughter who went to York University, where we live. Took her 2 hours on a good day. She quit. She quit going to school. It took so long. My other son, who's looking to go to Seneca, he can't get there. So that's now off the books. So it's just not what's happening in Scarborough in short-term little stops. It's getting people across to the Seneca College, to York, to Humber College in my ward. I hear it all the time. Kids are coming to the South Campus or Humber College. It's taking them hours. I was in Chicago on the weekend, as Councillor Ford said. What a great city. And I was not with Councillor Ford. I was there to turn the river green. But what a great city. I was sitting there thinking, going, what happens if they put LRTs here? What about New York City? Go to New York City. And they had a plan, well, we're going to put LRTs. What kind of city would New York be? You've heard me talk also. In this summer, I took my son and his girlfriend. We went to the Danforth for dinner. Nice summer night in August. We drove back along Bloor Street through Councillor Layton's ward and Councillor Vaughn's ward. And I said, look at the bikes. I said, you know anything? Notice anything? They said, no, Dad, what? I said, look at the bikes. Look at the patios. Every patio had 10 bikes hooked up to it. There was bikes going up and down. This is 11 o'clock at night. People on bikes. And we don't understand each other. The downtown councillors, and I hate to use that term, ask the suburb people from Etobicoke Scarborough to understand, well, we want bike lanes. Well, we don't understand that. And I've said, I'm loading my Suburban on Saturday with 50 bags of groceries. Well, downtown, they're going to an urban Sobeys, picking up just what they need for the next day. We live differently. It's time this council started understanding each other's needs and their wards. It's different downtown than in the suburbs. And, the councillors that have subways don't seem to want to support them. It blows me away. But I really think my job as a councillor, think long-term. As Councillor Holiday said, the people are going to come to the city in the next 30, 40, 50 years. That's my job. I'm supporting subways, and I'll be supporting Councillor Delgrand's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with Councillor Grimes. This is probably the most important decision this council is making when we're looking at the future of this city. When I ran for election a year and a half ago, this is the reason why I wanted to do what I'm doing, is to make these kind of decisions. It wasn't about the politics. It wasn't about the back and forth. It was about making these kind of decisions. So I'm honored to be here right now to participate in this. Right. My colleague Michael Thompson earlier mentioned about the Bloor Viaduct and how integral it is to this city. And I started thinking about that. And I realized back 100 years ago, 90, whenever that was built, that was about city building and that was about vision. Because when they built it, of course, during the time of horse and buggy and the beginning of the car era. And they built it. And they had this road going across, which was a great road. All of a sudden, you can go from one side of the city to the other side without having to go through the valley. But what they built was a track underneath for the future, the potential of a possible subway. There was no subway in the city, but they built it. The city forebears built this. That was an opportunity for something that may happen in the future. And you know what? I'm very glad that they built that track underneath the Bloor Viaduct. About 65 years ago, we decided on Yonge Street to build the subway north of the 401. Back then, as was when we built the viaduct, there was nothing on the other side of the valley. There was nothing other than country. When we built the bloor or the subway north of the 401, there wasn't much north of the 401 at all. But we decided, and the city council of the time and the forebears built a subway to Finch. That was vision. That was city building. And I'm glad they did that. If that was not the case, if we had decided to put an LRT north of the 401, we would not have the North York that we have today at all, bar none. About 35 years ago, out in Scarborough, where I've spent most of my life, City Council, the Metro Council, whatever they were at the time, had a debate about extending the Kennedy subway station to the Scarborough Town Centre. We had the same debate that we've had here pretty much, and we've talked about that. They talked about city planning, and the staff said, well, we don't have the density, and we don't recommend putting a subway up there. We can't afford it, so we shouldn't be doing that. The province stepped in and decided, you know, we have this interesting new technology. Let's build an SRT, an above ground. So they did that, and they built it. A couple months ago, City Council made the decision to replace that SRT because it is old, it didn't work, and it was not functioning properly. We should have put that underground 35 years ago, and we didn't. I'm concerned in about 35, 40 years, 25, whatever that time is, the City Council of the time is going to be having another debate, especially if we put the LRT across Sheppard. They're going to have the same debate that, you know what, it's not functioning, it's not working. We're at capacity, we're at overcapacity. We should have put in a subway 35 years ago. That's what the City Council 35 years from now possibly will do. I don't want to have that happen. I want to know that in 35 years from now, and I probably more than likely won't be here, that the City Council, this City Council made the right decision for the city.
And we only have 2 speakers left.
We have an opportunity here to look at city building and visioning. Not for 10 years, not for 20 years, but 50, 75, and 100 years from now. And that is to put in the Sheppard Subway and to finish the link that was there. That was the plan initially, was to finish the link from over on to the Yonge Street, over to the Scarborough Town Centre. That was the vision 30 years ago by the City Council of the time, and that's what we should be finishing. When you look at where Scarborough is going to be going with the increase in population, we are 1/3 of the land mass. We have 650,000 people. Over the next 20, 30, 40 years, people will be moving into Scarborough. They'll be moving into the suburbs, and I don't consider that the suburbs. I moved in there 15 years ago, and I thought I was moving out to suburbia out in Scarborough. I live in the city. I live in the urban part of this city, and that's what I want to see continue. We need to have subways. I'm voting for subways, and I urge everybody to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Berardinetti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I know everybody's said quite a bit, so I'll keep it short. But I don't have a motion. So, but I will be supporting Councillor Del Grande's and Councillor Pasternak's, Councillor Kelly's, and assessing the rest as I go if we succeed. So the reason why I support Councillor Del Grande's motion is because when this issue was before us at Executive Committee, and the number of revenue tools were raised at that time by Gordon Chong, and we were reviewing them and mulling them over and trying to do research on them. Then we did the work, and what we decided on was that for the most palatable, it would be the parking levy. There were other ideas, but this is the one that seemed to be the most palatable for council. And so when that issue came forward, what I think it does is it moves the city forward. And this is what we need to do. We have to think about the larger vision, the long-term vision for the future. and we have the revenue tool. And when I look back as a member of Budget Committee, maybe not currently, but as for the past 2 budgets, what I kept hearing about was about the vehicle registration tax and the concern about the rescinding of that tax, and that it could be used for pools or it could be used for ice rinks that really didn't operate 85% of the time, and for other items that were actually raised on a motion that was put forward at Council. And the issue is that vehicle registration tax, the biggest concern was that it was not directed towards a given service or capital project in the city. And that's what really irked the residents, and they found it very resentful. So when I was running on the election campaign, I heard it over and over again at the door, this vehicle registration tax. And the reality is that people can, there's no tax that anybody loves. I've yet to find one. So we have to review these tools, though, and that's the reality that we've presented here today. And the councillors from Scarborough, we've reviewed it, and we're bringing it forward, although anybody else could have brought a revenue tool forward. There wasn't anything preventing anybody from doing that. So what we did was we reviewed those tools, and we were the ones that brought it forward. But yet I find it ironic that the issue during the budget was, well, bring back the vehicle registration tax. We could pay for pools over here, or we could pay for this item over here, or this service over here. Many of which really didn't operate efficiently. And we should have been doing the real work, which is drilling down into those inefficiencies and making them work properly. Maybe not cutting the service, but making those services run properly. And that's what we're supposed to be doing as a collective and as a full council, and not just leaving it to the 6 members that are on the budget committee, or 7, including the chief. So when we found this revenue tool, it was after we heard time and time again from councillors who said, we want subways too, but you don't have a plan. You don't even have a revenue tool. You know, we support subways. That was the narrative going on at that time. And then what we did was we did the groundwork because we wanted to make it work for the city. We really want subways in the city. We want the city to be a first-class city. And we want to bring the revenue tools to the table. We realize that. So that is the reason why we did the groundwork, and why now we have brought it to the council floor. And now all of a sudden the narrative's changed, and it's saying, well, we still don't want it. LRTs is actually the right technology, even though the reality is that most councillors and MPPs in Scarborough know what the right technology is, and that is subways. And we've heard that. I've heard it from my traffic and engineering staff, who have told me about traffic evaporation and other issues that were never discussed and never been able to be discussed. Because I wasn't able to discuss that at the last meeting because it was thrown on the floor, and we weren't able to discuss the fact that they are taking out 2 lanes on Eglinton. So that is going to happen, even though I've heard time and time again that they're not taking out 2 lanes. They are taking out 2 lanes.
10 seconds.
So the reality is that it affects us. We need to go with subways. It is a long-term plan and the long-term vision for the city. We've brought the revenue tools extension.
An extension has been requested. There will be a recorded vote.
Councillor Cho, please, and Councillor Davis.
Councillor McConnell, please. Councillor Mammoliti.
Councillor Palacio, please. Councillor Palacio. If you're in the chamber, Councillor Palacio, we need your vote, please. Councillor Shiner, please. And Councillor Ford.
The motion carries 36-4.
Councillor Berardinetti.
When we were formulating or crafting this, and I obviously give the most credit to Councillor Del Grande, spent the time crafting it, and with our input. And what we wanted to address was having a separate office that would be similar to Ontario Infrastructure, and this would be the Toronto Infrastructure Office, that they would use that seed money that we can get from this, from the parking levy, and make that grow either through 3P or looking for private public partnerships, but that they would grow. And that obviously does involve Metrolinx. This is definitely an issue that we still have to go to the table, but it gives us that time. So what we're asking for is allow us to move forward with the $1 billion towards Sheppard, build the 2 stops, and that will give us the time to get the other revenues onto the table with the seed money. And the issue is also looking at Metrolinx, looking at the province or the feds coming on board with either a retail tax or some other revenue. But the reality is that if it's not Sheppard, you still have all of these other lines of transit that need to be built in the city. And it's the relief line, and it's the other lines in the city that we have to get subways onto. So it's not just Subway or Sheppard Subway today. These are the other lines that we have to address, and getting these revenue tools started now, not a year from now or 2 years from now or the next term of council. It will never happen. And we have to do it now, and we have to have the courage to do it. That's what we've been sent down here to do. We were elected to do this. So it's been a very difficult year and a half, and we now have a tool in front of us, and I hope that you use it.
Thank you, Councillor Berardinetti. Councillor Lindsay Luby.
Thank you. Very briefly, because I want to make sure that we finish this item before we leave here tonight. I was the person who started off with the Jerry Maguire theme of show me the money. Now my next one is going to be no taxation without consultation. And that's exactly what Councillor Balayo's motion does. She's sending it to the city manager so that he can come out with a process. I believe the public needs to be consulted on any revenue tool, whatever it is, that we go forward with. I kept a very open mind when I read the materials before us from Dr. Miller's committee, from Dr. Chong's group, and I tried to ensure that I understood exactly what was going on, that I was going to be doing the right thing. And I think there's a couple of things that dismayed me. One is that the debate has become very divisive. It's them against us. It's the suburbs against the city. That is wrong. That is absolutely the wrong way to go. And I don't think it's helpful to anybody. So it has engendered a very emotional debate that really has not been helpful. The second thing that's really got me concerned is the way people have used the St. Clair streetcar as this is LRT. It's totally confused the public, and maybe that was done intentionally, I don't know. But it's the wrong thing to have done. And the public deserves to understand there is a huge difference. So the public really does need to be kept informed of, you know what, if you're going to be paying some more money, you better make sure that it's the kind of money that you want to spend. The numbers I am very concerned with because, on the one hand, in the Sheppard Subway was planned to have a huge running number. And I'm just trying to find it. It has underperformed. In 1992, The environmental assessment to support the Sheppard Subway from Yonge to Scarborough Centre was based on employment levels of 93,000 in North York Centre and 65,000 in Scarborough Centre. However, what happened? By 2010, North York, instead of having 93,000 jobs, had 39,000. And Scarborough Centre, instead of having 65,000, has 14,700. That's underperforming, in my opinion. And the other problem here is that we know development in the suburbs, except for Councillor Grimes' ward, which is really bloomed. Yeah, it's waterfront, it's the western beaches. But development in the suburbs is much slower because the suburbs are different. We have our own culture. And people don't like to change a lot. So we all know that. So I have a big concern here to try to say, push through a subway. Don't we all want subways? Yes, yes, yes. It's just not a matter of save our subways. It's a matter of what we were saying last fall was save our services. You remember that one? So let's not go by slogans alone. Let's do the thoughtful approach. I'm going to be supporting Councillor Balau's motion. I'm also going to be supporting an LRT on the Sheppard. Thank you.
Oh my God. Do the people of Etobicoke...
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have a motion. I'd like to ask staff to put the motion on the screen, please. Madam Speaker, I'm going to move that Council refer the item and all amendments, amending motion to the City Manager for consideration in the development of a comprehensive transit plan and funding strategy. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the panel for the work that they have done. Whether or not we agree or disagree, quite frankly, they have been absolutely outstanding, have brought forward recommendation based on the information that has been provided to them. So I thank you all very much, and I'm going to give you a big round of applause. Madam Speaker, there has been a lot of conversation about whether or not it's subways and LRTs. And by the way, I stand in support of subways. But let me do a couple of things. We have heard from a number of members of council here who have said, well, you know, you haven't shown us the money. Where's the money going to come from? I want to remind members that many of you voted for a $700 million purchase for LRT cars without any money at all. Okay, so I want to remind you of that. We had a meeting at Metro Hall while this city was on strike. Right. That occurred. But I think that it's really important to understand the following. Madam Speaker, I spent as a student in Montreal about 4 years, fantastic years, taking the metro there. Montreal is an island. Montreal is much smaller than the city of Toronto. Toronto has a larger population than Montreal. Montreal and Toronto has equally the number of metro lines in Montreal, subway lines in Toronto, and the number of metro station and the number of subway stations are equal. Although we have a much larger area, it seems to me, Madam Speaker, that the notion that we're simply discussing $8.4 billion versus what we really should be looking at is a comprehensive transit plan for this city. Now, we are very thankful for the panel's recommendation, but I want to remind members, if you have read the panel's report, page 55 talks about the sustainable transit future for Toronto. I think that's where we should begin, not where we end. This motion that I've put forward will actually take us to the beginning, because what it will actually do, it will address the issue about a comprehensive plan, a spine of subways and other elements, buses and LRTs and so on across the city, which we really need to address. We continue to play around this, but we haven't addressed it. In 1992, the people of Scarborough were told that, in fact, you're getting a subway along Sheppard. We were also told that before the SRT was built, but we ended up with the SRT. It seems to me, Madam Speaker, if we look at what's happening in Montreal and the plan and the vision that they've had for a smaller city versus what we've done here in Toronto, we have not kept up. Here's an opportunity for us to be engaged, for us to keep pace. We have said time and time again, we don't know where the money is coming from. Well, we have a whole series of tools that we can use. We must use the tools because clearly nobody is going to pay for what Toronto wants, no matter how much we want from the federal government or the provincial government. Yes, I do agree that they will kick in some amounts. But the fact of the matter is that if we talk about ourselves being a world-class city, we need to be bold. You remember, Madam Speaker, about 99 years ago, and I asked today, the question. We had Edmund Burke and Thomas Taylor, who basically were the designers, the architect for the Bloor Viaduct. And they put a process in where we actually were able to connect the east side and the west side of this city. We're all benefiting from that today. I did ask Mr. Miller earlier on today, Madam Speaker, whether or not, if we had the financial tools, and in fact on page 44, I believe, in the report, it talks about what the panel sort of felt strongly that, in fact, obviously, if you had additional options in terms of the financial tools, they would have come out with a different decision. So we limit with respect to the options that they had available because we were talking about simply $8.4 billion. What do we need for this city? We need a better transit plan. For Scarborough, Madam Speaker, I'll need an extension of 2 more minutes.
Okay, recorded vote.
Councillor Kelly, please.
Councillor Vaughan, please, and Councillor Cole.
Councillor McMahon, please.
Councillor Mamalidi, please.
This is for the extension.
The extension carries 34-4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you talk to people about, particularly developers, about developing in Scarborough, they will tell you that Scarborough doesn't have a good, strong transit system. Many of us, as members of Scarborough Community Council, discovered that some time ago. In 2006, we put out a report that addressed that, Madam Speaker. A number of members who are here today were part of that and signed that document, which said we need to address this particular issue. It is not just Scarborough. It is clearly the entire city of Toronto that needs to have improved, higher order of transit. We have an opportunity today, ladies and gentlemen, to seize the day. This referral, the referral that I'm asking to the city manager will allow him the opportunity in a comprehensive way to tell us how we can actually afford to actually expand in a comprehensive way a transit system that's going to work for this world-class city. If we want to be world-class, we have to act world-class. If we want to see the economic opportunities and gains in the areas such as Consumers Road and Scarborough Town Centre area and the Scarborough Civic Centre area, we're going to have a more effective way to allow people to get to work, from work, to school, to the doctors, and so on, wherever they want to go. It's clear to me that the panel has helped us to identify a way to address a more comprehensive plan. It talks about potential revenue tools, talks about looking at the KPMG report, recommendations that they have outlined. It also talks about what some members have talked about here today, a more regional expansion in terms of the tools that we want to look at, so Toronto isn't at a disservice in terms of us having to charge fees in certain areas. So I do think we need to address this.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Sorry.
So I guess just want to take this. This is good.
Okay. The names that we have up there, are they to speak on the referral?
Yes. Oh, no, the filibuster. There should be a column called filibuster.
Questions? Okay. Okay, questions on the referral. Councillor De Grande.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Thompson, we've had a very long day today.
Thank you.
The motion that you've put forward, obviously, I'd just like to understand why it is at this point that you feel that a referral motion is in order.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor. Councillor, I've been sitting here all day listening to the questions and listening to the speeches that members have given. And what we have been focusing on is essentially a macro approach to a micro approach to a macro problem. And I have been reading the panel's report, and it talks about how we can get to a comprehensive strategy, and members have raised this issue, but no one has focused on that. So I felt compelled to bring that forward.
So would you also be concerned that we should refer this because what we're undertaking is very, very significant? I've heard people say, oh, geez, the revenue tools, I don't know, it was representation or taxation, whatever, without consultation. So if that concept has been brought to the floor about consultation, then would you not agree that your motion would then allow us in the meantime, till the city manager reviews this, to go back into our...
Okay, just one sec. I'm sorry, sure. Councillor Grind. Okay, Councillor Jamari, McConnell, Fragadakis, Perks, Bala, McConnell. Please. Please. Point of order, Councillor Mihevik.
Madam Speaker, I would like to move a motion to basically extend council to finish this item tonight.
Well, when it's at appropriate time, I would take your motion, Councillor Mihevik. Okay, Councillor DeGrand, can you just finish your question?
Same tomorrow's today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm good.
I'm down.
Josh, I'm
calling
good.
the question on
Councillor
the after 10 speakers. Well, you got 10 speakers on there, so I'm going to put my name.
Okay, Councillor DeGrande, your question.
Oh, I can start. Okay. So, since we've had a very fulsome debate, etc., and this is probably one of the most important items that's going to affect Toronto for years to come, you would agree then it would make some sense that in the meantime that
Sorry.
Can't hear.
I know. Okay. You know, I'll give you a few extra seconds. Okay, Councillor Bylaw, please. Councillor DeGrand is trying to ask a question to Councillor Thompson, and you're speaking right behind him.
Bylaw, by the way.
Bylaw. What is that again? Is it by loud?
Well, you know, you can make a joke as much as you want, but if you want to act like children, then...
No, she just wants her name pronounced.
Okay. Okay, so, Councillor DeGrand.
Put it in another way, Councillor Thompson. There isn't, from your understanding, like nothing's going to be built tomorrow.
That's correct.
It's going to take some time.
That's correct.
I think they said by the time this gets going or something, it's 2016.
That's correct, Councillor
Okay.
Belgrand. So there's an opportunity for us to deal with this properly, because I've heard from many people here today that we should do that, but in fact, as we've heard from the panel members as well, what they have provided us in terms of recommendations is based on what we have given them. It's a very limited scope, and I think we need to expand that scope much broader.
So your motion doesn't have any kind of time frame. Would there be acknowledgement that maybe some period of time?
Well, I would...
That was your last question.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I stopped because everybody was yapping.
I would want the city manager to come back as quickly as possible, whether or not it's another 2 months or 3 months or what have you. However long he needs to take, I want him to do it properly. We've heard that Councillor Lindsay Luby said no taxation without consultation, and I actually agree with her. So we would have to have that process in order to go through that, because obviously if we show where the money is going to come from, we have to have some discussion with respect to the consultation process and so on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll take Councillor Mamalidi and then we'll take that vote. Councillor Mamalidi, 3 minutes.
So the objective is to refer everything off?
Right.
And that would make sense, wouldn't it?
I fully agree, Councillor. We need to deal with this in a comprehensive way. What has been our problem in this city for such a long time? We tend to shave off and piecemeal, and we tend to fail to look at a more comprehensive approach to deal with a very fundamental problem.
So let's bring this back for a minute, because this did go to the executive, didn't it? It was forced onto council floor without all of the reports that were needed.
Correct.
All of the monies associated to successfully building out.
Yes.
Who forced it onto the floor?
Well, I don't know who forced it on the floor. The matter was as part of our agenda, and clearly we had to deal with it. But it seemed to me that it was brought in front of us without sufficient elements such as the expert panel's recommendations. And part of what we have in their report is a way forward. And I think we need to deal with that in a comprehensive way. We can make the short-sighted, short-term decision and say, let's just deal with LRT on Sheppard, or let's just deal with Finch and forget about subways and so on. But is that the right answer? Is that the right approach for this city? I submit to you it is not.
I agree with you.
Thanks.
And you know what, Councillor Thompson? I wish you best of luck with this referral motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
I hope that everyone agrees with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have to apologize because for the first two questioners, it was 2 minutes for questions, not 3, so I apologize for that.